For eons, the universe believed that gas giants were the ultimate sanctuaries. These colossal spheres of hydrogen and helium, possessing gravity that can flatten steel and storms that last centuries, were considered unreachable, unconquerable graveyards. But they were inhabited. In the crushing, metallic hydrogen depths of the planet Typhon lived the storm stalkers. They were bioluminescent titans, composed of ultradense muscle and silicon chitin, swimming through the high-pressure atmosphere like krakens through a liquid ocean. From these depths, they launched kinetic spores that struck our passing trade fleets, retreating into the impenetrable crushing abyss whenever we retaliated. They thought they owned the extreme zones. They believed that because our soft, biological bodies would pop like balloons in their world, they were safe forever behind the shield of physics. They were wrong. They forgot that humanity doesn't just survive an environment, we annex it. We looked at the crushing gravity of Typhon and didn't see a threat. We saw a fuel source for our vengeance. We created the Abyssal Armors Initiative. And we birthed the first deep atmosphere cavalry. The Pressure Knights. We don't send fragile ships into the giant. They would be crumpled into tinfoil before they reached the second cloud layer. Instead, we drop from orbit in insertion coffins, massive, heavy tungsten carbide shells containing the Pressure Knights. These mechs are not graceful. They are 30-foot-tall engines of industrial violence, sculpted from hyperdense single-crystal steel alloys and powered by unstable black hole miniature singularities. They are built for one purpose: to use the planet's own gravity as a weapon. We don't have weapons that fire out. We are the projectile. We climb to the upper atmosphere, engage our thrusters against the buoyancy, and then we dive. We turn ourselves into 50-ton meteors, accelerating to terminal velocity through thousands of miles of crushing gas to deliver an impact that hits with the force of a tactical nuclear strike. I am Commander Anvil Vance. My cockpit is a stabilized environment of 70,000 atmospheres, and my internal organs are fighting to stay solid. And I'm about to drop the hammer on a god. The insertion was a free fall into a hell of geometry and gas. The outer atmosphere of Typhon hit our insertion coffins like a solid wall, the friction turning the titanium shells into screaming meteors of white-hot fire. Inside, my G-suit was working at its limit, pumping artificial fluids into my veins to prevent my heart from exploding under the acceleration. My HUD was a blur of atmospheric readings, the temperature outside climbing rapidly to 5,000 degrees. Insertion swarm check-in. Hold the formation. Don't let the turbulence separate us. I roared through the haptic link, the sound distorted by the pressure already pressing against the hull. Night 2 Jax. I've got hull integrity alarms, but the singularity is stable. The gravity is pulling us in hard now, Vance. Night 3 Sarah. Visual on the intermediate cloud layer. The stalkers are swarming. Sonar pings are lighting up the whole sector. We blasted free of our insertion shells at 20,000 atmospheres. The Pressure Knights were unleashed. We were a mile deep, suspended in a thick, soup-like environment of liquid metallic hydrogen. It was a world of darkness, lit only by the terrifying, massive bioluminescence of the stormstalkers rising to meet us. They were a carpet of tentacles and glowing teeth miles wide. They opened their maws, releasing massive, directed sonic blasts that shook my mech structure, trying to find a resonant frequency that would shatter my armor. But abyssal armor doesn't resonate. It just gets heavier. Engage buoyancy thrusters. We need height. We ignited the singularity engines on our backs. We weren't trying to fly up. We were fighting the atmosphere to stay stationary, using the insane upthrust of the dense hydrogen. We climbed for 20 miles, fighting against the planet's gravity until our engines were screaming on the edge of a meltdown. Below us, the stalker swarm was a pulsating sea of orange light, unaware that their safe, crushing environment was about to become their graveyard. Formation. Invert the thrusters. The dive is live. I flipped my mech. The black hole core in my back, previously fighting gravity, now aligned with it. We ignited the primary engines for maximum downward thrust. The acceleration was violent enough to make me lose consciousness for a microsecond. The Pressure Knight didn't just fall, it was propelled by physics and fury. We were traveling at Mach 15 through an environment so dense it was practically liquid. The atmosphere around me didn't just part, it was pulverized, the friction creating a brilliant blue halo of ionized plasma around my mech. I was a 50-ton sledgehammer falling from the sky. Anvil sync locked. Target the Alpha. I focused my seismic sensors on the primary biosignature below, a stalker Kraken 3 miles long, the leader of the swarm. It saw me. It unleashed a final, desperate sonic blast. It was useless. I was moving too fast for the sound to affect my momentum. I adjusted my multi-jointed kinetic lance, aligning the 3-ton spear of solid tungsten directly with the creature's central brain case. Impact. The collision wasn't a sound, it was an event. When my pressure knight hit the stalker at terminal velocity, millions of tons of concentrated gravitational force were unleashed into the creature's biology. The alien's ultradense flesh didn't just break, it imploded. A visible sphere of shattered atmospheric pressure rippled outward from the impact zone, the surrounding metallic hydrogen gas being compressed so tightly it flashed into solid diamonds before vaporizing back into a plasma jet. The Alpha Stalker's 3-mile body was obliterated at the point of impact. The force of my dive pulverized its primary and secondary organs, the blue alien ichor spraying outward in a geyser that was immediately consumed by the extreme pressure and heat of the compression wave. My mech traveled right through the creature, splitting it down the middle, and continuing another mile into the abyss before my safety thrusters could finally overcome the momentum. Across the depth strata, the swarm stopped pulsating. They felt their leader vanish in a burst of industrial violence that ignored the laws of their sanctuary. Sarah. Jax. The formation holds. Target the support cluster. Give them the chain impact. We wove through the fractured stalker swarm. We don't fight them with weapons, we drop on them. We would climb 500 feet, then dive. Climb and dive. Climb and dive. We were a trio of industrial pistons, hammering the alien titans into pulp. We used the very pressure and gravity they relied on for safety and turned it into a constant, unrelenting hammer that pulverized their dense chitin and crushed their bioluminescent maws. The stalkers, unable to flee a creature that was faster and heavier than they were, broke formation. For the first time in their evolutionary history, they were afraid of the deep. They tried to retreat further into the abyss, to a pressure where even our mechs shouldn't survive. But the first deep atmosphere cavalry doesn't know the meaning of a depth limit. I pushed the Breaker 09 Singularity core past the red line. The blue arcs of energy jumping from my multi-jointed legs began to turn a violent, flickering black. We follow them down to the core if we have to. No safe haven. I dived one final time. Not on a single target, but on the primary gas anchor, a massive, crystalline formation the stalkers used as a nesting ground. It was miles wide, holding trillions of eggs. I ignited my seismic crusher, a 3-ton mass driver on my other arm, designed to generate a localized tectonic shift upon impact. I hit the gas anchor at full velocity. The impact was the death of an ecosystem. The massive crystalline formation didn't just break, it underwent a total molecular collapse. The vibration was so powerful it shook the entire strata of the Typhonian atmosphere. The shockwave rippled through the gas anchor, pulverizing the stalker eggs, shattering the crystalline pillars, and creating a black hole of compressed hydrogen that imploded the remaining alien defenders in a single, final gravitational feast. The stalkers were gone. Not retreated. Massacred. The Typhonian atmosphere went quiet. The swirling orange and violet clouds began to settle, the eternal storms temporarily calmed by the sheer violence of our assault. The bioluminescence of the deep was gone, replaced by the dull, warm orange glow of a dead world. I stood on a falling shard of the shattered gas anchor, my mech slowly cooling from a dull red to a scratched and scarred matte black. My starback Singularity was hissing as it bled off excess thermal energy. My suit was drenched in sweat and alien ichor, but the deep was safe. It wasn't silent, the giant always roars, but it was no longer inhabited. It was just gravity, just pressure, and just us. Humanity has proven the ultimate truth of the galactic dominion. You can hide in the folds of space. You can exist in the gaps between seconds. You can burrow into the crushing depths of a world of high-pressure gas. But we are the species that knows how to adapt the cage. We are the ones who will take your safe haven, turn its physics into a sledgehammer, and beat you to death with it. The stalkers are crushed. The nest is dust. Typhon is clear. The mission is over. Now engage the ascent thrusters and get me a coffee. I'm tired of the pressure.